We're going to keep this very informal today, okay, everybody? With the whole Zoom technology thing, it's hard to be very formal in today's day and age. And I got to be honest with you, I have a little bit of Zoom fatigue. I'm not going to lie. I'd much rather be in person with you. And from what I understand and from what I talked to Beth about, this is geared for family caregivers, okay? I have been doing this now for 8 years, and I have fallen in love with my family caregivers. And I'm going to tell you all that I have the utmost respect for you. I'm going to tell you that I love you. You don't know me, but I love you. Because what you guys do as family caregivers is not easy. You didn't sign up for this job. This wasn't supposed to be the card you were dealt in your life, so to speak, but you do it anyway. And that's what I love about you. Okay. My mom was a family caregiver too, for years, for my grandmother who lived with Alzheimer's disease. Okay. But back in those days, they didn't call it Alzheimer's. They called it what? Senility. Yeah, that's right. Senility.
They called it crazy Aunt Sally.
Yeah, I had a couple of those in my life too. Senility was another one, hardening of the arteries. I got all these terms back then, but I had no idea about the disease or dementia in general. And if I would have known then what I know now, I would have treated my grandparents differently. There's no doubt. My mom, this was tough on her. Okay, it wasn't easy for her. She took my grandmother into the home. And I had 2 sisters. It was me and my father who just wanted his cuckoo mother-in-law out of the house. And I would say things to my mom back then that I regret now, like, Mom, what are you doing? You could be successful. You could be making money. Why don't you just stick her in a home somewhere? And I got to tell you guys, I'm a Catholic, all right, and I believe this is my penance for everything that I did wrong back in those days. But I am a spiritual person. I believe everything in my life happens for a reason. I'm not one for coincidences. I always say coincidences are nothing but God's way of staying anonymous in your life. I don't apologize for my faith, because if it wasn't for God, I'd be nothing. And this was my calling. I didn't realize how much of a calling it was for me. But it definitely was. So 10 years ago, I was up in Long Island, New York, just like Jan is up in Huntington, Long Island. I'll explain that one in a second. But I was up in Long Island, New York, living a very selfish life. 40-year-old bachelor, wasn't planning on getting married, wasn't planning on having kids. But the old saying is, you plan your life and God laughs, right? So, I grew up in West Islip selling semiconductors, electronic components, and I had a hot dog hamburger restaurant in Huntington, Long Island, and it was called Bad Dogs. And if it wasn't for that restaurant, I wouldn't have met my wife, right? So she comes in one day. I asked her out over a sweet potato fry, and the next thing I know, I'm married to her that year, and I'm getting a phone call from my father-in-law because we moved to New Jersey, Ralph, up in, where did I live? Oh God, I'm drawing a blank. By the way, that's normal aging, what I'm doing right now. That's normal aging. I lived in Wayne, New Jersey. And I used to work in Parsippany, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was in semis and I couldn't do it. And I called my father-in-law. He's like, hey, would you be interested in moving down to Florida and being my partner in the Comforcare business? It's a home care business. I didn't know a thing about home care. But I make a long story short, I said yes. Left behind my family, my friends, sold my business, left my career in semis to come down here on a whim. And honestly, it was the best move I ever made, because it led me to people like you. All right. My mom used to say that success is not measured on how much money you make in your lifetime. It's important. What's important is how many lives are better off because you exist. And that goes for Beth, her organization, and what she's doing. That's why I'm thanking her for having me on here. I'm just a resource, guys. All right. I don't consider myself an expert in anything. I consider myself a great student of this disease. And if you have any questions for me throughout this presentation, I want you to unmute yourself and just start talking to me, okay? And if I can answer some questions, I will. But that's exactly what I did. I came down. My father-in-law says to me the first week in business, I need you to become an expert in Alzheimer's. I go, that's a coincidence. All 4 of my grandparents had some form of dementia, all 4 of them. So I took it upon myself to become a national certified Alzheimer's educator by the NCBAC. I'm Department of Elder Affairs certified to train professionals, all right, in Alzheimer's 1 and 2 so they can get their certificates so they can work in these communities around here. I've trained, like Beth said, over 250 of my caregivers, HHAs and CNAs, and which is a shame because down here in the state of Florida, they're only required to have 2 hours of training within a 90-day window of being hired. Now, you guys have been doing this a long time. Do you think 2 hours of training, if I gave you 2 hours of training right now, you would know everything there is to know? Huh. Bill's shaking his head, no, right? There's absolutely no way. So what we have to do is continue this education process over and over and over again. And that's what my goal is down here. I do support groups. I have 5 of them right now that I'm running via Zoom. I am dementia, I sit on the board of Dementia Wise for a national Comforcare, teaching my caregivers how to speak this language of dementia. Like Beth said, I do my music program. I've been doing it now for 8 years. Pre-COVID, I was in 40 communities a month, volunteering my time for my friends who are living with the disease. And there's power in music. And I know Beth knows that very, very well. I'm looking forward to utilizing her down the road when all this restrictions lift and we can go back to a sense of normalcy. And I got to tell you, even, you do as much sing-alongs as I have over the years. You too can get a bobblehead doll made up of you. You didn't see that, did you, Beth? It actually sings too. I'm like Elf on a Shelf. It was a good marketing piece, but everywhere I go, this is on a shelf somewhere, right?
Where'd you get that?
So I had this done. My mother-in-law, hold on.
You didn't put a stop button on it.
And it's done. So there's actually 3 songs of me singing on here. And my mother-in-law thought it was a good idea for us to get a bobblehead doll of Tino to put out to the market saying, hey, we'll even sing and dance for you. They pimp me out all the time, guys. But anyway, here I am in this business now. I'm doing all these things. And my heart is with you guys, all right? So like I said, if you have any questions, please let me know, but we're going to get into the presentation right now. All right. So without further ado, I always ask this question to my family caregivers, and you guys can unmute yourselves if you want, but I want to know, do you guys know what the difference is between Alzheimer's disease and dementia? Now, I know Beth probably knows this, and I know her sister knows this, Jan. Besides those two, do you guys have any idea what the difference is between Alzheimer's disease and dementia is? Because I get this one a lot. Any takers?
Isn't Alzheimer's a form of dementia?
Who said that?
May.
Who's me?
May.
Oh, May. Hi, May.
Hello.
That is very, very true, May. And you are probably the only person that I have asked that question to in most of my family caregiver training sessions that actually knows the difference. Okay. So with that said, I can't tell you how many people come up to me. It's like, my husband, he doesn't have Alzheimer's disease. He has dementia, right? I get that a lot. And thinking that one is better than the other. So I like to always explain dementia like this big umbrella. I call it ice cream, okay? There's a lot of flavors to ice cream. The #1 most popular flavor of dementia happens to be Alzheimer's disease. I call it chocolate ice cream. All chocolate ice cream is ice cream, but not all ice cream is chocolate, right? This is how I like to describe dementia in flavors. #2 most popular flavor is vanilla, which I call vascular dementia. #3 is Lewy body, which I call strawberry, okay? #4 is frontal temporal dementia. Out of those 4, that makes up about 95% of all the dementias that are out there right now. All right. There's like 102 different flavors of dementia. So, and 1 out of 2 people over the age of 85 have some form of dementia. So if you are struggling, as we get older, like I had a senior moment right there. Okay. I'm 50 years old. I consider myself a senior sometimes. I really do, because I feel it every day. And I'm walking into rooms. I forget what I walked in there for. It happens a lot. I'm forgetting names of characters in movies. I was looking for my glasses, I swear to you, for 20 minutes, and they were sitting right on top of my head. Guys, I do this stuff all the time. You too, Beth?
All the time.
When
We have a solution to that, Tino.
stress, drinking, what? Like, what is it?
No, just call everybody kiddo.
Yeah. I do that. Kiddo, hey, how you doing, dear? Nice to see you, my man. I do things like that a lot, right? I have to go to my wife all the time, like, honey, what's his name over there? Is it Bob? John. I go, yeah, I was close. So I do these things a lot. And I'm going to tell you guys, when it comes down to normal aging, you got to keep an eye on that. All right. Because mild cognitive impairment is very common, and it's a pre-dementia. So you got to keep, I would say, you start going to your neurologist, get yourself worked up and checked out, because believe it or not, there's a lot of reversible dementias. I'm not going to get into all of them right now. Okay. And if you have questions about those reversibles, I can talk to you about them, but I'm telling you right now, there's a lot. Vitamin B12 deficiencies. Okay. Hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism. You Bill, all of that? Really? Oh my goodness. Make sure that you are going to your doctor regularly and getting all that medication taken care of, because urinary tract infections, all of it. All right. Sleep deprivation, depression.
Lyme disease.
Go ahead, Bill.
Lyme disease is a big one.
The Lyme disease is another one. Yeah. So all this stuff can cause a cognitive impairment. So just because you're showing signs of cognitive difficulties, don't chalk it up to, oh my God, I might have Alzheimer's. I'm going to stick my head in the sand and not do anything about it. Okay. Because a lot of this stuff is reversible. Go ahead, Bill.
So you equate these different types of dementia with flavors.
Yeah.
Which is great. So it makes everybody understand.
Yeah.
But flavors you can look at, they look different, and you can taste them, they taste different.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tell the difference between all of these early on?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I would say going to a neurologist, a board certified neurologist, can diagnose to see what flavor of dementia that you may be dealing with early on. Listen, on this left side of this picture, you see a healthy brain. On the right side over here is an advanced brain with Alzheimer's, okay? This disease takes away 2/3 of someone's brain mass. You never want to get it to that point if you're showing early signs on, because all that brown stuff and the reduction in the brain, all that is beta amyloid and tau proteins causing havoc on the neurons, killing them off. So if you were to go to a neurologist, or even, we have a lot of people in Palm Beach County who I know who are looking for a cure for this disease right now. Okay. And if you can, I have an appointment at age 55. So I'm going to go in and it's all clinical trial. It's all drug, these drug companies pay for these clinical trials where they can stick my head under a PET scan with the positron emission tomology with a dye. It's a Pittsburgh dye that goes throughout my central nervous system to trace to see if I have beta amyloid in my brain. Okay. Now, when would you want to find out you have beta amyloid in your brain? You want to find out pre, or do you want to find out at this stage 4, right? Like cancer, or like I said, stage 7 is really the term there. But when would you want to find out you have cancer? Pre-cancer or stage 4? So I would always say you always have to go early on, get yourself always worked out and checked out. Make sure all of that is being taken care of, because it may not be Alzheimer's disease. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, to make that diagnosis, you need to see MRI evidence of amyloid deposition in the brain.
For Alzheimer's. That's not taken away,
For Alzheimer's.
Right, just for Alzheimer's, okay?
That's what I mean. Okay.
Yep. And they have those tests. Back in the day with my grandmother, the only way to get a test is on an autopsy.
Right.
Well, no one's signing up for that test, Bill, right? So what I'm saying, right now they have the technology to see if you have the traces of the beta amyloid floating around in your brain. Okay. So don't hesitate. And if you want, I can give you 2 names and I'll give you my number. You can call me up anytime and I'll give you the names of the 2 people who I know who are going after these beta amyloids and these tau proteins for clinical trials. The 2 best guys in the world are down here in South Florida. Why? Because we're fishing in a stock pond down here.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
What's that?
There are a lot of people.
A lot of people. So when I see a picture of this, guys, I'm going to tell you that, this makes me sad because this happened to all 4 of my grandparents in one shape, form, or another. Okay. And I realized when they act out in behaviors that it wasn't them and it wasn't me. It was necessarily that was causing those behaviors. It was the disease that was doing that. All right. So I feel bad about that. But also when I look at this picture, I see 2 hemispheres. All right. On both sides of the brain. The left talks to the right talks to the left. I'm going to tell you that the power of caregiving stems from your right hemisphere. And I'm going to explain why. All right. My wife, Allison, and I, we get along really well. And I think it's because we share one brain. My wife operates her world on her left hemisphere. Okay. I operate my world on my right. My wife is very smart. All right. Your IQ comes from your left hemisphere. EQ, your emotional quotient, comes from your right. I'm a very emotional guy. Allison's very detail oriented, very organized. She's a number cruncher. She likes things nice and neat inside a box. And when things flow out of the box, she loses her mind. Okay. She's very controlling, control freak. Hey, listen, there's a Bill's pointing to you. But let me tell you something. If it wasn't for my wife, nothing would get done. All right. So I love her for that part of her. But me, I operate my world on a different level. She's very verbal in her communication approaches. I'm very nonverbal. I am very musically talented. Okay. I'm musically inclined. I think of things, the 30,000 foot overview. I don't sweat the small stuff. I'm very artistic, very creative. That's all done here on the right hemisphere. So all these things that I'm talking about is critical when it comes to Alzheimer's care. Nonverbal communication versus verbal. Being detail oriented, being stuck in routines is good to a degree, but you got to think outside the box and go with the flow with people with dementia. Okay. And that's all done here, driven on the right hemisphere. We all have to use it. Just got to start tapping into it a little more. Okay. Now, what I like to talk about here is 2 states of consciousness that we all have. Now, we all have tools. Now, I always say to my caregivers, tools are a great thing. Okay. When you have tools in your toolbox that can help get you through your day, it's going to make your life better, happier, and more productive, but you need those tools. So I like to focus on what is preserved with people with the disease versus always focusing on what's lacking with them. Okay. Because when you start understanding what's preserved, then you can start tapping into those resources and start understanding where their world is coming from. And when you start understanding where their world is coming from, it'll make their world make a lot of sense to you. It just does. It's just going to take some time to understand it, but you need to know what these tools are. So today I'm going to talk to you a lot about the blessings, a lot about the tools. I'll talk about what's lacking with people, but I really want you to focus on what is preserved. Okay. So when it comes down to all of us, we all have 2 states of consciousness. We have a cognitive state and we have an affective state. Now, the cognitive state is something that's lacking in all of our lives. Okay. Thinking, planning, organizing our thoughts, sequencing through tasks, all that's done right here in that frontal lobe of our brain. Okay. Impulse control, the executive function, that red, yellow, green light. Red means stop, green means go. Yellow means if I walk downstairs in my underwear while my wife is playing mahjong with her 4 girlfriends, there's going to be consequences to that action, right? So we understand those consequences because our cognitive state is working just fine. But people with dementia on all flavors are struggling, especially when it hits that frontal lobe of the brain with the cognitive. what everybody doesn't realize, what they hold on to until the end of their lives, and you will too, whether you have a brain disease or not, is this thing called the affective state of consciousness, okay? The affective state there is hardwired in all of us, 6 parts, okay? I wish dementia would take away the first 3, which is fear, panic, and rage, okay? When you have dementia and your cognitive is not working, the fear, the panic, and the rage is amplified to a point where it controls their life. As caregivers, what we have to do is pull them out of all of the fear, panic, and rage with the next 3 things, which I call my blessings, which are love, and a lot of it, more than we ever give to our loved ones now. We got to really show them a lot more love, a lot more kindness, a lot more compassion, all right? A lot more sensitivity. They care. They care about you. They care about what this disease process is doing to them. You'd be surprised how many family caregivers come to me and say, oh, she has dementia. She doesn't remember a thing we said 5 minutes ago. That's not the case. It's not the facts. She's had that person is hanging on to the feeling of what's happening in the environment. And I could tell you story upon story when it comes down to people focusing too much on the facts and not enough on the feeling, okay? But they do care, and you got to care about them a lot more. And the last part of the affective state, which I love because it's all about play, all right? Having fun, enjoying each other's company, palling around, listening to music, dancing, all this stuff is part of play, all right? So start tapping into the love, care, and play to pull them out of the fear, panic, and rage, because it's all amplified. Now, when it comes to memory, there's 2 different types of memory. You have implicit memories and explicit. Now, explicit memories is a lot like, you know, the details about memories, okay? Very like what's on the news, what's on the TV, how does that connect back to the reality that we live in? Details about memories, about facts. Sometimes you're talking to people with dementia, they'll start mixing up stories from their past, from long ago to short term, and they start mixing them up. They can't get the details right. That's explicit. Situational memory is all part of that, and it's going away, all right? What they hang on to are these things called implicits. Now, the implicit memories is all about the emotional memories that people, places, and things make on them, okay? So part of implicit memories is also procedural. My grandmother, she knew how to knit pillows and blankets and hats, okay? Oh my, but she couldn't remember the conversation I had with her 5 minutes ago. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes down to implicit memories, okay? So make sure that you start tapping into the long ago memories, the emotional memories, the stuff that makes them feel good. That's what implicit memories is about, okay? Now, with behaviors, I'm sure you're looking at this right now, and I'm not going to get into all this for time's sake. And this is what I usually train on, you know, the wandering and the rummaging, aggressive behavior. Do you guys all know what sundowning is, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. It's that wake sleep cycle in our brain, that circadian rhythm. That this is all part of the disease, the hallucinations, the delusions. Bottom line, at the end of the day, guys, they can't express how they feel. So they're going to express it in different ways. And normally it's through a behavior. Okay. And I call that all a distress. And redirecting a behavior to me is like a magic trick. And you got to get good at a magic trick, because the art of magic is the art of misdirection, where the trick happened right in front of you, but really it happened 3 steps back and you just missed it. Redirecting, and people use that word all the time, it's the same thing, but you have to get slick at it. Otherwise, they're going to call you out on that redirect, that they think that you're setting them up for something. So I always use this analogy, and I usually use a red ball, but I'll use my ring, okay? If this ring right here represents, you know, the hallucinations and the delusions, the sundowning, the questions that we don't have answers for, the repetitiveness, and this hand represents you as the caregiver, your job as a caregiver is to come in and take that distress away, okay? And redirect the behavior out here to something a little more positive. So hopefully when they get out here, they forget about what's bothering them in the first place, so you can get them to do whatever it is you want them to do. So the problem with Alzheimer's disease, thank you, Bill.
Very good.
The problem with Alzheimer's disease, guys, is this. Ready? They're always going to have a problem in their head. Now, you didn't see me put that ring in my mouth, okay? But that's the misdirection. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to misdirection. There's a 5-step process, okay, when it comes down to redirecting behavior. And it's a simple step, all right? There's 5 steps. I'm only going to get into the first 2 right now because the first 2, if you don't do these in sequence, you just blew the whole magic trick and you got to go right back to the beginning again, okay? So the first step in any kind of redirect is that you have to get you right. Nonverbal communication to me is more important than verbal. Why? Because it's not what we say anymore to our loved ones that's important, but how we say it, all right? Deep in the center of all of our brains, we have an emotional center, and I call it a radar. And it basically scans the room for the way that people are making you feel and the impressions that they're making on you. I call it a radar, okay? So when I go to do my sing-along program, before COVID hit, I have to get myself checked out before, check up from the neck up. I have a miserable day. I'm in a bad mood. I don't ever want to bring that in to my friends living with dementia because they have enough problems of their own. They don't need mine as well. Emotional contagion is a real thing, okay? If I start smiling, you guys are going to smile along with me. If I start laughing, believe it or not, you're going to start laughing along with me. I do this demonstration all the time. And people with dementia pick up on these emotional contagion feelings that are happening to them in the environment around them. So just remember that radar, okay? I walked in one time into a sing-along. My friend Ruthie, God bless her soul. I miss her so much, but I never forget what she said to me. She was a good old Southern gal, okay? And I said to her, I walked in, I go, Ruthie, it's good to see you, sweetheart. How you doing? And she looks at me and she goes, I don't remember your name because I have a slight memory problem, she said. She goes, but I know that you're here to make me happy. Am I right? And she didn't remember my name or what I did, but she remembered how I made her feel almost 3 weeks ago. This is what I'm talking about. She connected me to an emotional feeling that she felt when I did the music program. So I'm like, you better believe it, Ruthie. We're going to sing some songs and have some fun. She goes, oh, I love to sing. I go, I know you do. Come on, let's go. All right. So that's all part of what I'm talking about with that radar. You know when someone's talking down to you like you're stupid. You know when someone's lying to you. You know, who has kids? You know when they're lying to you. It's not what they say, but how they say it. I actually think this thing right here, our phone, was the best thing that ever happened to us and the worst thing that ever happened to us. Because caregivers, and I tell them all the time, if you're with a client and you're sitting there trying to engage with them and trying to connect with them, and all you're doing is this, let me tell you, you just made that disconnection happen right there. And they're looking at you like, look, they don't care about me. They're just sitting here doing nothing. I'm sure some of you have gotten that before, right? So when I do my training, I try to tell my caregivers, do not ever let me see you on this when you're caring for someone with dementia, because they need to know that you're present with them, that you are making them feel good about themselves, that you're making them part of the team. This disconnects someone in 2 seconds. Worst thing. And I have a big pet peeve about that. All right. But your face expressions, your mood, your body language, all of it's got a direct correlation to the people in your care. So you got to make sure you get you right. And you got to be a good listener. All right. I agree when I'm with my friends with dementia all the time. I mean, they'll say the craziest things to me that don't make any sense. Like, I'm in the 3rd grade and I'm not going to sit there and argue with them. Instead, I said, you know what? You're right. Matter of fact, when I was in 3rd grade, and I would go back to a story that I was in 3rd grade. So you have to make sure when you're dealing with dementia, you have to the best way to redirect is to disarm somebody. And how do you disarm? Just agree with them. That's all you got to do. Okay. Be a good listener is a hard thing for me to do because my wife yells at me all the time. Remember that whole, she talks and talks and talks and expects me to listen. I actually think it's more of like, selective hearing. But I do struggle with ADD, and it's very hard for me to focus sometimes. There's actually a prayer for an ADD. I don't know if you guys ever heard that prayer. It goes like this. It goes, dear God, please help me focus on the things I need to focus on today and help me do this one thing. And it's, oh, look at that pretty bird. That's the prayer for an ADD person, man. That's me. Oh my goodness. I get that.
Very funny.
All right. So step 2, okay, is your verbal communication. Now, if you are going to be verbal, you have to really start cutting your sentences down when you're dealing with dementia to 1, 2, 3 words at a clip. And you have to start getting more visual. Okay. I'm Italian. As you couldn't tell, I use my hands a lot. So you got to make sure you get more visual. What I mean by that is if I just gave you a visual right now, everybody, ready? What am I saying to you?
Let's go for a walk.
You and I are going to go for a walk. Come with me. Come on. You have to start using less words and start getting more visual with everything you do with your loved ones because they're not processing words like they used to. This is learning the new language of dementia, and that goes for everything. Got to take a shower, take off your clothes, right? You'd be surprised how many people touch somebody without permission. They don't give them one visual cue, and you have no idea how many people get punched in the head because they do that. And you wonder why, because you're entering their space without permission. So start giving more visual cues, okay? Watch your words with them, but also watch your words with yourself, all right? Stop telling me that this is an impossible task, that you can't do this, because it's not. And when you start saying those words to yourselves, what you're doing is you're setting up a chain reaction in your brain to prove to yourself that something can't be done. So instead, start trying to find the reasons why you can. Stop telling yourselves also that your loved ones are dying from Alzheimer's, because they're not. They're living with it. And we just have to figure out a way to help them live their best life possible. That's another pet peeve I have when people tell me their loved ones are dying from Alzheimer's, and they're not, okay? They're living with it. So make sure you praise them on everything they do. Every time you give them a task to do, make sure you praise them along the way. Good job, way to go. There's not one person in this world that's born with confidence. We all acquire it, okay? Build castles, don't dig graves, and build them up. Don't tear them down. I'm starting to adopt this Montessori, Dr. Maria Montessori approach to caregiving. You guys don't know who Dr. Maria Montessori is? She was an advocate for independent care, okay? And there's a difference between independent people who say, I don't want your help. I don't need your help. I can do this without you. All right. And you got the dependent people, like my father was, what my mother, his whole life. It's like, Lil, make me a BLT. Lil, do my laundry. Lil, he can't live his life without my mother. God forbid something happens to my mom. I don't know what we're going to do with my father. Okay. He is a very dependent person on my mom. The key to caregiving is this thing called interdependence, all right? Interdependence means you and I together are going to accomplish a common goal. And that could be as simple, guys, as doing the laundry together, making a meal together, going for a walk together, taking the garbage out together, making them part of the team. I always tell my caregivers who work for me, don't do for them, do with them, because you want them to be feeling that need and that feeling of want, okay? So just make sure. Now, one thing I tell my caregivers to do all the time is start doing a lot more music in the house. Play a lot more music, start listening to more music, because out of all the tools that are out there, music happens to be my favorite tool in the caregiver's toolbox. And it's a shame that caregivers don't utilize it enough, because it's so easily accessible. And if you think about it, it surrounds us every day and everywhere we go. It wakes us up in the morning. It keeps us, company on our commutes, on our travels. It motivates our workouts. It relaxes us and calms us down. It's always good to get a party started, right? Music is awesome. It connects us on a spiritual level, but most importantly, music connects us on an emotional level, all right? And if you were to take one thing that links all of humanity together, it's the love of music. And when I have been doing this program over the years, you can see that love in their eyes, how a single song could take someone right back to a better time, a happy moment, or just a great memory. And as we all know, time is very unkind to the people who we love. All right, this disease will dull people's minds, erase their memories, take away their abilities, but music is the one thing that opens up their brains and helps fire off neurons on both hemispheres of the brain. producing brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine and endorphins. These are chemicals that make people happy. So for crying out loud, why would you utilize this tool, right? So I always tell my caregivers, it is a universal force, and it is. Start utilizing it more often, I'm telling you. So the abilities that are preserved with music, I'm not gonna start breaking everything down on here because I don't wanna start getting clinical with you, but I wanna talk to you about some of the things that are preserved, okay? Let me explain some things that are lacking. Just like the flavors of dementia, I like to simplify things as much as I possibly can. When I talk about what's lacking with people with all forms of dementia, I like to talk about my 5 A's to Alzheimer's disease, okay? I don't know if any of you have heard about the 5 A's, but I'm about to explain them to you right now. So the first A, all right, on what's lacking with people that I always say is amnesia, okay? The inability to store information, all right? Remember memories. Deep in the center of our brains, we have this small little seahorse looking creature, and it's right on this slide right there. It's called the hippocampus, all right? And what the hippocampus is responsible for doing is taking in information. It takes it in, processes it, stores that information to a memory. Now, the problem with Alzheimer's disease is that this is usually the first place that the disease attacks. And I say usually because it doesn't always happen that way. When you met one person with Alzheimer's, you met one person with Alzheimer's. And the way the disease manifests itself in the brain is different for everybody. But usually it attacks that short-term memory first, okay? What is preserved though, like I said, when it comes to the music part of it, are the long ago, the impressionable, the emotional memories. The second A is aphasia. Now, as we all know, aphasia is the inability to use words. Stringing sentences together with a lot of information instruction is formal language. And this way of communicating is slowly going out the window more and more for our loved ones. So we have to learn that new language. Music is the best nonverbal communication tool that you can use because it can get people motivated and moving from point A to point B without even saying a word, okay? Your face expressions, your tone in your voice, your mood, your body language, all of that is all correlated to music, all right? The third A is agnosia. Agnosia is the inability to recognize people's faces and or objects and know what they are, okay? My grandmother used to call me Tony all the time. And she knows my name is Tino. I was named after her husband, Augustino. Matter of fact, this painting behind me, that's my grandfather, Augustino Vincenzi. He was a very famous painter. And I was, as far as I was concerned, I was her favorite grandson. All right. But when she saw my face, she saw her son, Anthony. And she would go, "Oh, Tony, my boy, my boy." I never corrected her. But the day she forgot my name was the day something died inside my soul. But one thing my grandmother hung on to more than anything that was preserved was that desire to be important, desire to be respected, okay? The desire to be in control, that need to feel pleasure and the need to feel safe. She required that all the time. The fourth A is apraxia. Now, apraxia is back in your occipital lobe and also your cerebellum, okay? Your occipital lobe is responsible for a lot. You know what your occipital lobe does, guys? Anybody?
Vision.
Very good. Vision, depth perception, color contrast. All of this is important when it comes down to dementia care. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people in memory care units who are eating white rice on a white plate on a white tablecloth, and they don't know what it is, and they're looking over to the next person over here who's got a lot of colorful stuff, and they're eating off of their plate, okay? Because the color is not there. You got it walking into a bathroom that's all bokeh beige, nothing, making determinations between the toilet and the shower and this and that. So a lot of color, a lot of light, depth perception, all of that is important. Back in your cerebellum is responsible for your motor coordination and your movement. So this is why that shuffle in their feet happens, especially with Parkinson's dementia. All of it is all part of that apraxia that's going on. But believe it or not, when it comes to music, rhythm, dancing, even people who are getting stuck or freezing, You give them a beat or a rhythm, and they come right out of that. All right. And I know that's true in Parkinson's. Am I correct?
Mhm.
A light or a sound or a music. So the same thing is with Alzheimer's disease too, to get them moving, to get them motivated to go from point A to point B. Now, the last A that I always tell my caregivers about is apathy. And what's going on in the world right now with COVID, apathy is a big problem. Okay, it is the lack of interest that my caregivers are, my people with dementia are dealing with, because they're isolating themselves from the rest of the world. They're not seeing their loved ones. They're sad. They're falling down a rabbit hole. I always tell I have running these 5 support groups right now, and people are dying not from COVID, but because of it. All right. And that's what's happening all around us right now. And it's so sad to see. They are losing interest in everything. Okay. So those are my A's to Alzheimer's. Now, I don't want to get into a lot of detail about benefits, but you guys all know there's a lot of benefits when it comes to singing. I know a lot of you are in a choir that Beth was telling me about. And benefits to singing is great because it helps you get oxygen to your extremities. When you're breathing in air through your nose, carbon dioxide, nitric oxide captures chemical elements that open up your blood vessels. When you shove air out, you're shoving oxygen to your extremities, your hands, your feet, and your brain. Helps you think clearer, calms you down. All right. It helps with speech and diction with people who have aphasia. Gabby Gifford, you guys remember that U.S. senator who got shot in her head?
Sure.
She lost part of her brain that was responsible for her saying words. She could understand words. She could hear what people are saying, but she couldn't get the words out. She actually praised the music therapist for getting her speech and her diction back, because she was able to sing through her thoughts that was on a separate part of her brain, which I find amazing. Okay. So there's a lot of benefits to singing. Listen, clapping hands, stomping your feet, dancing may not be much to you and I, but to someone who's 85-year-old person with dementia, you better believe it's exercise. Connecting to song themes. I have a new commercial coming out. You guys are going to see me on CBS Channel 12 News. And inside there is a footage of me up in North Carolina doing a sing-along program for my friends for this thing called The Importance of Music. If you YouTube Tino Negri, Importance of Music, you'll see my video pop up of me doing these sing-alongs with my friends with dementia. And there's a guy in there who's from, he was a military guy, and he was stationed in Del Rio, Texas. And I used to sing, Deep in the Heart of Texas all the time. And then every time I sang that part, he'd go, Del Rio. I remember that like it was yesterday. And New York, all these places, people, connecting you to people. My wife says, Tino, I love it when you sing that hillbilly song. I go, hillbilly song? What are you talking about, hillbilly song? She goes, you know that song, Won't You Come Home Hillbilly? Won't you? I'm like, no. I go, baby, it's not hillbilly, it's Bill Bailey. She goes, oh, you can't tell anybody I said that. I go, yeah, right. I'm telling everybody you said that. I got veterans in my sing-alongs, full-blown colonels. I put flags in their hands. We sing God Bless America. They stand up out of their wheelchair, salute me from across the room with tears in their eyes. Guys, music connects everyone on an emotional level. All right. Melody. When I see this, I think of, remember the lyrics or name that tune. I had this one woman, her name was Dolores, and she full-blown Alzheimer's, late stages of the disease. She didn't remember who her loved ones were. She didn't remember who she was, where she was. But I would say, Dolores, can you sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow? And that's all I had to say. And she would go, somewhere over the rainbow. In this high-pitched sound with pitch, tone, lyrics, everything. She knew every lyric to every one of these songs. It just blew me away. All I had to do was say that one phrase and she knew exactly. She used to be an old music teacher back in the day. Okay. Music definitely hooks people. I can't tell you how many times I started my sing-alongs with 5 people and I ended with 50. And it pulls people out of that apathy. Okay. It pulls people out of that isolation. It encourages people to sing, and these short phrases just get people motivated to be part of the group. There's an old saying in sales: if you set yourself on fire, people will come out of the woodwork to watch you burn. And it's so true. Okay. And that's what music does. It pulls people out of isolation. I'm not a doctor. Okay. Nor am I a therapist, but I believe with all my heart where medications fall short. Okay. And I promise you they will. the Numendas of the world, the Ariceps, the Exelon, Razidines, all of them. When they fall short, there are 3 holistic prescriptions I can give you all right now, okay? It's cheap. It's right over the counter. You can give as much as you want to your loved ones. They'll never overdose on it. And the best thing about it, there's not one bad side effect, all right? My 3 prescriptions have always been music, laughter, and a big old hug. Those 3 things will cure anybody's spirit. Forget the medications, man. I'm telling you. But this is what music does, guys. It puts you, it organizes your brain, puts you on a routine, elevates their mood when they're depressed, relaxes and calms them down when they're sundowning at bedtime, captivates them when they're wandering, stimulates their appetite, focuses their attention when they're agitated. When I was in North Carolina doing that video shoot, I walked into this foyer and I saw this woman in the front foyer who was pacing the floor, and she's like, "Excuse me, when's my daughter coming? Hello, when's my daughter coming?" She had fear, panic, rage on her face, okay? "When's my daughter coming?" I saw this caregiver out of the corner of my eye, beeline right for her, grabbed her hands and said, "Well, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes." And you saw this switch happen in her brain where it was the best redirect I've ever seen. She took her from point A to a table to do a puzzle with her. And I said, that was the best magic trick I've ever seen. And all she did was use music. It was powerful, okay? I have so many stories like that. But my caregivers, okay, who I love, all you guys, I want to know what your why is, okay? I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because when you know your why in life, the how is real easy. And I love this quote from Winston Churchill: "You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give." Amen to that, all right? But Winston Churchill, Dale Carnegie, John Dewey, Sigmund Freud, all these philosophers and all these authors in these books that I've ever read, they all say the same thing. There's a difference between needs and wants, okay? Let's break that down for a second. Why don't you guys tell me, what do you want in life? What do most people want in life? When someone asks you that question, what do you want? You tell me, what do you want in life?
Health and happiness.
Health and happiness. That's a great want. It's not number 1 though. What's the number 1 want? Keep going. That was very good. What's the number 1 want?
Wow.
Companionship.
Companionship. Good. I heard health. I heard companionship. What else?
LOVE.
Love. Big one. Big one. Not number 1 though.
Lottery ticket.
Say it again. Lottery ticket. Money. Now money is usually the first thing people scream out to me all the time. All right. They want better cars, a bigger house. They want to go on vacations. They want to retire. I've heard the money want a lot, but I'm going to tell you what the number 1 want.
Passion.
Say again.
Passion.
I can't hear you.
Passion.
Passion.
Oh, passion. Hey, I'm all about passion.
Me too.
And I wish I want that a lot. Passion, love. Hey, let me tell you something. Sexual gratification, it's in those books. Life in the Hereafter is in those books that I've read. All wants for people. Money. The number 1 want that burns in all of us, okay? And it goes to the
Validation.
Who said that?
I did. Cheryl.
Cheryl?
Cheryl. Yay.
Hey, Cheryl. Let me tell you, the number 1 want that burns in all of us is the desire to be important. Validation, okay? People want to feel like they're still part of the team, like they still have a purpose. Like I said, build castles, don't dig graves. Make them part of the team, and you'll get to move mountains with them. But if you start doing for them all the time, they're never going to do for you. The only way unto heaven to get anybody to do anything is by making the other person want to do it. A good example of that, I was at Alzheimer's Community Care Day Center, and a family caregiver called in to the director over there and said, "I'm sorry, but I can't get my dad down to the day center today." And she's like, "Okay, what are you saying to him to make him come down here?" And she would say something like, "Come on, Dad, it's time to go see your friends. They're going to be playing music. They're going to be serving hamburgers today. You love hamburgers. Ooh, they may even be playing bingo. You love to go do bingo. Come on, Dad, let's go. We have to go. And he said, no, I'm not going. Of course he's going to say no. So she said to her, and I never forgot it. She said, tomorrow, what I want you to do is this. Don't say any of that. What you're going to do is say, hey, Dad, the job called. The club called. Don't call the day center. Call the job. Call the club. Say, they're shorthanded today and they need your help. They called me personally to tell me they can't do it without you. What do you want to do? As soon as she said that, he jumped off his chair. He's like, well, we got to go. Come on, let's go. So that's one example of tapping into the desire to be important. Okay. When it comes
Great example.
a great example. I got a million of them. All right. But I'm just telling you, that is a good example to use. Start putting them on the team, making them feel important, tap into that desire. When it comes to fear, family caregivers, all right, fear is very, very real, especially in the world that we're living in today. Okay. I always say fear stands for false evidence appearing real. But to me, fear is like a fire. And if you don't control the fire, it's going to burn you up. And it's going to burn everybody around you up. You know where I got that quote from? Rocky Balboa. All right. But if you think about it, if you think about the one thing that you're afraid of the most, you got to ask yourself this question. Is this fear that I'm feeling, is it real? Or is it a thought that I'm putting in my head that's manifesting itself into something that's not the truth? What's the truth? Okay. Because if you continue to move down this path of fear, it's going to paralyze you. It's going to wear down your physical vitality. It's going to make you sick. I'm sure Beth has talked to you guys about, fear, fatal stress. This is what I'm talking about. Now, your loved ones have a right to be afraid. I couldn't imagine waking up every day not knowing who I am, where I am, who my loved ones are. I couldn't imagine the fear they must feel. Our job is to redirect that fear, but who are we kidding? We're afraid of everything, right? And we got to learn to control that fear. The only thing that cures fear in my book has always been, okay, number one, faith in something out there in the universe that's greater than you, okay? Faith in something. Number two is action. And I love action because when you have action in your life, you create this thing called momentum. And I love momentum is a person's best friend because it'll solve 85% of your problems. I use this analogy all the time. If you put a train on a track at 55 miles an hour, train's got a lot of momentum behind it, okay? Throw a problem in front of that train. Call it a 5-foot steel bearing concrete wall of a problem. A train at 55 miles an hour is going to see the problem, hit the problem, bust through the problem, and keep on moving. But if you throw that train on a track at 0 miles an hour with no momentum, okay, all you have to do is throw a 1-inch block in front of the wheel bearing. The train will never pick up speed because it's stuck in the mud, dead in its tracks by a 1-inch stupid block called fear. Don't let fear stop you from doing what you are meant to do. Okay, remove the block and get moving. Coming to meetings like this, learning from other people, tapping into resources, listening to Beth and getting her connected into this industry of what we're doing, trying to help you guys. I wish my mother had some of this stuff back then. She had nothing like this. You guys are creating momentum, and that's a good thing, all right? You got to change. They can't. The change starts with you. You're the one that has to make the difference. And change scares people to death. Let's face it, all right? No one really likes change. But the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. So we have to change. And if you are climbing this mountain through your adversity, and we all have adversity, every one of us. And if any one of us tells us, anyone tells you that they don't have adversity in their life, they're lying to you, okay? Everyone's got adversity. But through adversity, you find your lessons in your life. And with your lessons comes your blessings, and with your blessings comes your joy. But the only way to get to the joy in life is by going through the pain. How do you know how good is if you don't know how bad was, right? So if anything that I can say with coronavirus and everything that's going on in the world, we are going through our pain right now. But I promise you all, There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to find our joy again. I don't let this consume me. I don't let the fear consume me. You have to move through it. You have to push through it like that train. Don't let the fear stop you. Listen, change is the most inevitable thing in every one of our lives. There's not one person that's not dealing with change, okay? It's the most consistent thing. Some changes, all right, are very welcoming, like a birth of a newborn baby. Some changes will bring you to your knees and will keep you there if you let it, like a unforeseen illness or a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or cancer or coronavirus, right? Some changes will rip your heart right out of your chest, and you'll feel like you'll never get a piece of that, your heart back again, like a unexpected passing of a loved one. You know, there was a famous quote, I'm trying to remember, it was from Harriet Beecher Stowe. She said, the bitterest tear that is shed over graves are the words that are left unsaid and the deeds that are left undone. Don't wait until tomorrow to tell the people in your life how much you love them, because tomorrow is not guaranteed to any one of us. And if you build up enough tomorrows, you're going to find out in this lifetime, you just collected a lot of empty yesterdays. The only difference between the changes in my life and the changes in yours are only in the details. You want to see my latest change? Check this out.
Oh,
I am a 50-year-old man, and this is my first child. Her name is Ashley, okay? She's 4 years old now, okay? But you don't understand the adversity that Allison and I went through to have Ashley, okay? Miscarriage, thousands of dollars in IVF treatments, okay? And it wasn't taking, nothing was working. Allison said to me, Tino, I don't think that this is going to be possible. I don't think we're going to have a kid. And I said, Allison, I give you my word. I promise you, one way or another, you're going to be a mother. I was looking at adoption agencies. I'm still looking at adoption agencies, by the way, because there's a lot of kids out there that need homes. But on April 8th in 2016, God puts in my life this 7-pound, 6-ounce bundle of what?
joy.
We had to go through our pain to get to the joy. And she looks just like her daddy. Yeah, a funny story. I was in Delray, all right? I was at a restaurant, and I'm waiting for my car in valet. And I'm holding Ashley by the hand. And these two older couples look at Ashley, and they go, oh my goodness, she is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. They look up at me and they go, how does it feel being a grandfather? I went, oh no, man. I had to go home and dye my hair that day. I felt horrible, man. I can't believe it. I still can't believe I'm 50 years old with a 4-year-old. It blows my mind. But that was my biggest change in my life. Okay. And it's the best blessing that ever happened to me. So this is my grandmother. This is Mafalda Vincenzi. She was the one that was quote unquote with the one with senility, hardening of the arteries. This is the one that my mother took care of back in those days. She never was a smoker. So I put that cigarette in her mouth. I said, Grandma, pretend you're cool like the Fonz. She goes, oh, okay, sweetheart, with her Italian accent. And don't laugh too much at my shirt. That was in back then. So two very profound things happened to my grandmother before she passed. And I'm going to share it with you all right now. And then I'm going to end on this, okay? My mother calls me up one day. She says, Tino, you got to get over here. Grandma's having a very, very bad day. So I went over to the house like any normal grandson would do. And I saw my grandmother on the couch. She was in a fetal position. She was screaming. She was crying. She was full of fear, panic, and rage. And I did what I was supposed to do. I sat down on a chair with her. I held her hand. I said, Grandma, what's the matter? She goes, oh, Tony, my boy. She goes, they're here to take me away. Please don't let them take me away. I go, Grandma, there is nobody here to take you away. I promise you, I'm not going to let anybody hurt you. I'm here for you. She goes, no. They're right behind you. I was like this. I'm like, she saw two people right behind me, clear as day, all right, that were hallucinating, looking to take her away. This went on for like 20 minutes with this fear, crying. And then out of nowhere, okay, she got this elated look on her face. She went from fear to this. And I'm like, okay, now she's smiling. What's going on? She goes, oh, do you hear that music? Do you hear that music? This time I played along with it. All right. I said, oh yeah, I hear it. Wow, that's beautiful. I tell you what, Grandma, let that wash over you. Okay. Get some sleep, get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow. She goes, okay, sweetheart. Okay. I gave her a kiss goodnight. My mother wraps her arms around my neck. She goes, thank you so much. I go, Mom, hang in there. Hang in there. I jump in my car and I'm driving home and I'm saying to myself, I think that's the last time I'm going to see my grandmother alive. And I was right. She died the very next day. Now you can call it Alzheimer's disease. You can call it senility, hardening the heart. I don't care what you call it. What I'm taking to my grave is that my grandmother saw two angels right behind me. And the gates of heaven cracked open and she heard beautiful music coming from the other side. Nobody is taking that away from me. Nobody. So my grandmother, coincidentally enough, all right, used to have a very famous quote that she used to quote all the time. We're all about quotes in our family, all right? My grandmother in Italian used to use this quote. It says, avverte sempre l'amore nel tuo cuore, quanto giorni canzoni sulle labbra, which means in Italian, does anyone know? Does anyone speak Italian? It means this. You will always have love in your heart when there is a song on your lips. Coincidence? I don't think so. I've been doing this a long time now, and this is my way of giving back to her. All right. So listen, guys, that's all I have for you today. I don't even know what time I started. I probably went over. I apologize, but I just wanted to share with you my heart today. All right. Does anybody have any questions? I have nowhere to go until I have to go to Taekwondo at 7 o'clock. So you have me all ears. Get off of mute, everybody. Ask me questions if you have any.
Hi, this is Cher.
All right. You know what I'm going to do? Can you take over your screen so I can see everybody?
Can you,
Yeah, hold on. Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
All right, let me stop sharing. Hold on.
you have to stop the share.
Yep. Stop sharing. Oh, there's everybody. Okay. So Cher, how are you, Cher? I don't see your face, but why don't you tell
Oh,
me?
good, because I'm in my pajama gear. Um, I just wanted to say I enjoy your talk very much,
Thank you.
and want to thank you for the God wink. And my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's, and I was a caretaker for a short while, but I do believe that music is one way to reach them. And of course, no one in the world wants to feel alone or afraid. And it's one way of comforting them that works quite well, for at least in my case. So that's all I wanted to say. I enjoyed your speech and it was very informative. And thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, Cher. God
Thank
bless
you,
you.
Cheryl. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you again.
Okay, you will.
Thank you.
Tino, we have a story about Nancy's dad had dementia. We're not quite sure what kind it was. He was an old man, so could have been multi-infarct dementia, who knows? But he had it for what, 8 years plus before he recently passed, actually just 4 or 5 months ago. But one thing he always did, which always made him smile, was the music. We used to put on YouTubes of the old 40s and 50s big bands that he loved and songs he loved to sing. But what was interesting was when he stopped participating in the music, when it wouldn't stimulate, that was when we noted it was a short time after that he passed away.
That was spiral. Yeah.
That was the end.
Yeah.
So that was a big part for Bob.
Yeah. I see a lot of that. When they stop doing the things that they love to do and they start going down this downward spiral, you know. But the only thing we can do is, like I said, is you don't know when the time comes and the day comes that they go home. But until that day comes, You just try to help them live their best life possible. That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
You know, you did a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Oh, thanks,
The
Pat.
whole family is just unbelievable. It's a gift you all have. It's unbelievable to me.
We're very passionate. We're very passionate people, all of us. That's why, and I could be honest with you, for 8 years being in business together, that could have went either way.
That's
I'm
it.
just telling you. I'm
Absolutely.
working full time with my wife, my in-laws, and my brother and sister-in-law. That could have went either way, but it was.
You a lot of credit.
Yeah,
One of the most exciting parts of this journey with your family and today after meeting with you
yeah.
is there are some people who are on right now who are part of our Voices for Parkinson's chorus. And Tino and I were discussing how cool it could be if maybe we could blend the two so that we could go perform when he does his group, because our group loves to perform. So I'm hoping that we can
I don't know if
connect.
it's tender. It's supposed to be like falling apart. Oops.
So thank you again so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And I look forward to meeting some of you again when we can get back into reality and back into these places and start giving our hearts to these people.
Ah, yeah.
It'll be fun.
Be patient. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Get there.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Have faith.
Great
Thank
presentation.
you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Don't forget January 23rd. Mark your calendars.
Got it. Jan, it was nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
Good
If I
luck.
ever get down to Florida.
Come down. Come visit. Absolutely.
Thank you, Tino.
All right, guys. God
Thank you.
bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.